Alice Munt, the guardian witch of Rochesterville, awoke with a blinding hangover, as she did on many a morning. She'd been up a good portion of the night, putting Amy and Isaac Post in touch with their dead relatives, and, as any good sister knew, the veil of the spirit world was best penetrated on a gut full of sherry.
Fitch.
She cursed at no one in particular. Her mouth was bone dry. Her one good eye failed to focus, and she had a headache of monumental proportions. Hangovers were an omen, often a good one, but a cripplingly bad hangover was a sure sign of a bad day. Alice went through the ritual of preparing her morning cup of Hecate's ashes, a poor quality blend that tasted like warm vinegar drunk from a dusty ashtray. Regardless, she felt the brew dampening the force of her headache, permitting her to think. If she could have afforded Gray Malkin's potboiler, the witch's blend of choice, then she might have attained immediate relief from all her symptoms. But the British were not fond of Alice and her Massachusetts sisters. They'd stockpiled the entire panoply of herbs and teas necessary for witches to perform their duties, releasing them in small amounts at high prices. Boom! A sound like a thunderclap echoed in the distance, and Alice thought she felt her house leap off its foundations. Her forehead throbbed ruthlessly, aggravated by the sound of a fist, bang, bang, banging upon her front door. Alice clutched at her ears in pain and croaked,
Have mercy! Cease that god-awful racket!
Please!
came the voice from the other side of the door.
Things are falling apart out here.
Alice snatched her monocle off the nightstand, crossed the room, and swung open the door. The sign on it read, Mistress Alice Munt, Witch of Rochesterville. Problem solved, both general and domestic. No loud noises. Penalties apply. Today's curse is... The sign had a small blackboard nailed to it, upon which was written, Head-shrinking curse of the Marquesas Islands. Alice set the monocle in pace and squinted.
Ben, is that you?
A young man with a pot-belly stood at her doorstep. His short frock coat was covered in soot. His knickerbockers were smudged with grease, and he seemed quite distressed. Alice impatiently tapped one of her long fingernails upon the small blackboard.
That's yesterday's curse. Before you make one more loud noise, let me tell you that today's curse is Javanese in origin. It applies only to men, but happily still involves the shrinking of bodily parts.
Ben, seemingly aghast and intrigued, automatically looked down at his crotch and then back up at Alice.
You can do that?
Another boom echoed in the distance, and the earth shook once more. The motion set off Alice's full-fledged head pounder again.
I give you fair warning, Ben Franklin.
It's not me causing it, Alice, I swear. Look!
He pointed off to the distance, where she could see the buildings at the center of the city. Towering above them was a metal giant, spewing great jets of pressurized steam from vents as it moved. Its mighty fist shattered the crystal dome of the Hochstein Academy of Prismatic Musicology, releasing the tunes stored within it. The cacophony of musical styles leaked out into the sky, and even from such a distance, Alice winced in pain.
I see. So you finished your electric brain then?
Yes.
And you've put it inside the body of a 100-foot iron giant just for fun?
I was inspired by the story of the Golem of Prague. It seemed like a good idea at the time. You know, for building bridges and laying track and such.
Ah, I see. And what happened to the Golem of Prague in the end?
Young Ben frowned.
My invention is not a golem exactly. It's an iron giant.
Alice crossed her arms and tapped her foot impatiently.
What happened to the Golem of Prague?
It ran amok and destroyed the city.
Bingo! I'd wager that it doesn't seem like such a good idea now, does it?
No, I suppose it doesn't. Although it pains me to admit you're right.
The kinetomatic graph building was next. The Meccano man knocked its roof, clean off. Projected light came flooding out. The giant's metal frame became a makeshift screen, and the garbled music of the Academy provided a soundtrack to the warped images of Sir Wyatt Earp, High Sheriff of Her Majesty's wild western colonies.
An iron giant, Ben? What were you thinking? Can't you inventors invent things on a smaller scale? Is there a trade rule against it or something? You'll all be the death of me.
Alice pursed her lips in disapproval. In a town of mad inventors, Alice had learned you had to suffer 100 near disasters before one good thing came of it.
I don't suppose there's an off switch on that monstrosity, is there?
It didn't seem necessary. I have a command station back at my workshop. I should have been able to control it from there without any difficulty. I don't know what's gone wrong.
The giant flattened City Hall with a swift kick. Clouds of dust and chunks of debris rose from the rubble. The monster paused for a moment to survey its handiwork. After a satisfied belch of steam, it began pulling lengths of steel from the ruins.
That's where the problem began? At your workshop?
Ben nodded.
Quickly then, let's get there. Experience has taught me that the beginning is as good a place to start as any.
Alice threw on her cape and cowl, scooped up her fox-head staff, and dashed out to the curb with young Ben Franklin to hail a hansom cab.
Ahem.
Ben said, nodding towards the street. Alice stopped and looked over at the wheeled contraption that was parked in front of her house.
Your horseless carriage? I don't think so.
You've been in it before. You know it's perfectly safe. We don't have time to catch a cab, Alice. We need to get to the university as fast as we can.
Oh, Fitch. All right, but I don't want to make any attempts at flight today. We'll stay on the ground, if you please.
But
She held up her hand, silencing him.
I don't care if it does have wings. It's 1898, Ben, and we live in the invention capital of the world. If anyone was going to build a crash-proof flying car, they'd have done it by now.
Alice climbed up into the front seat, placed her hands in her lap, and steeled herself for the bone-shuddering ride along the cobblestone streets of Rochesterville. Ben cranked the shaft at the front of his flying carriage. The engine coughed up a bucket of smoke and came to life with a frightful noise which for some reason seemed to please the young man. The engine made a squeaking sound that reminded Alice of a chipmunk's mating call.
I've given her a name, you know.
He shouted over the din.
Do you hear that noise? To my ear, it sounds like chit, chit, chit. And as I've modeled the wings on those of a hawk, I've decided to call her Chitty Hawk.
I'm ecstatic for you.
The chassis trembled and rattled as if the whole thing might fall apart at the seams. Alice thought Death Squawk might have been a more appropriate name. Ben climbed in, and their bumpy journey began. In the distance, Alice saw the giant bending I-beams into metal horseshoes.
Did you name your giant as well?
Why, yes.
Ben shouted over the roar of the engine.
I call him Vulcan's Hammer.
Him?
I think of it as a giant metal man.
Alice smirked for a moment, then frowned as something unpleasant occurred to her.
Ben, you did say that you invented your giant for building and laying track and such, did you not?
Yes, ma'am.
Alice thought that she smelled the faint odor of cabbage and brimstone when she first opened her door to Ben, but now her nose was thick with it. A few discreet sniffs confirmed Ben as its source. It was a smell that only witches could detect, the smell of a lie.